"Oh, like, you're such a poser," whatever. He pronounces it "posier" in the book multiple times. He's like, "Oh, well, you're just a posier." And I'm
I
like,
don't
"Wait."
know how to feel about that.
I dropped him after that. I don't listen to Will Wheaton anymore.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Screened In podcast, where we watch anything that's on our screens. That can be movies, TV, video games, anime. If it's on a screen, we're probably talking about it. This time, it's sort of on a screen. Joining me is my esteemed co-host, back to esteemed, John Artigler. Welcome, John.
Oh, glad to be back, to
Yeah,
being a steamed burger.
that's
I
right.
I feel like I went around the food gambit, and now I'm back to good old reliable.
Yeah, that's right. That's not the only news. We've decided to come out as weekly.
Biweekly.
Bi-weekly.
Yeah, um,
How'd you
I
like
feel
that
like we've
joke?
that was good. I feel like we've touted being weekly before. We're like,
Yeah.
"Every
Yep.
week that you'll see us," but, it gets tough. I mean, it gets tough. We both have a lot going on, and, I feel like, bi-weekly or just not weekly. There'll
I
be a
like
couple
that.
little bit of a
Not
gap in between
weekly.
our episodes. Yeah.
Yeah,
Sometimes it might come out a little sooner than bi-weekly, but I feel like that's what you can expect moving
definitely.
forward.
Absolutely.
But we're
Well,
not going anywhere.
no,
So,
no, no, we're not absolutely not going anywhere. Because you know what I like, John?
anime women?
Maybe. But I also like
Oh,
a good story.
oh, that was the second one I was gonna say.
Yeah.
That was the next thing up.
And being an adult can be hard. It can be difficult sometimes. You got chores, you're going from
Yeah.
place to place, and
Always on
sometimes
the move.
and sometimes you just want words that are on a page to just go inside your ears instead. You know what I mean, John?
Yeah, I'm too busy to be reading and
Yeah.
holding a book. Who's got time?
So that's where audiobooks come in.
Mhm.
It's sort of on a screen. So let's
Yeah.
talk about them. That's what this episode is. We've been talking about audiobooks
Yeah.
for a little while now because it is a medium that you and I enjoy.
Yeah, I listen to audiobooks pretty regularly now. I usually listen, like, while I'm working, it'll be on in the background. Sometimes I can't if I have to, like, really concentrate, but, yeah, it's sometimes I'll go in waves where it's all I listen to, and then sometimes I don't, but I really enjoy them.
Well, actually, let's stay there for a second, John. Are you able to like work and listen to an audiobook at the same time?
Yeah, sometimes. I mean, if I'm doing something
Wow.
that's, like, just, like, monotonous kinda, like, I have, like, step by step in my brain, and I know what I'm
Yeah.
doing, I can listen, but if I have to type something out, or if I have to write something, or if I'm, having to think of an idea, then I'm like, "Oh, hold on a minute, I'm not listening. I need to
Yep.
pause this." I'm like, "Geez Louise," like, I that does happen
Yeah.
quite a bit where, like, I'm like, "I'm gonna listen to this," and then 10 minutes later, I'm like, "This was not a good idea."
Yeah, I'm not so good at doing that. If any activity requires like any level of higher functioning, it's just
Mhm.
not gonna work out well for me. However, chores are definitely a different set. Like I can do chores and listen to an audiobook at the same time, but I can't do anything for like work. That becomes a
Mhm.
little bit more challenging. But
It's
I
fun. The chores is I just started doing that a little bit with,
okay.
like, uh, when I start, like, to cook dinner and I'm starting to, like, chop vegetables, I'm like, "Oh, wait,
Yeah,
I could just put my book on and listen to that."
exactly.
A lot for me, a lot it was just, like, when I would go on walks or something and, you're just walking for an hour, let's say, it's a great just full hour, you can just put the book on, and knock a good chunk out without really thinking of other things.
Yeah, yeah. I I
Uh,
I love audiobooks, like, on a walk too. That's,
yeah.
like, my favorite.
So, how long have you I wanted to bring I guess this is a fun thing to bring up in the beginning. How long have you listened to audiobooks and how much? Because if you go on your app on your phone, it
Oh,
shows you how long you've listened
okay.
overall to audiobooks.
Oh, let's pull that up.
So,
I did not
yeah,
know this.
I didn't either really.
Wait, is this on my phone or on Audible that you're saying?
It's on your Audible app on your phone.
Okay. I'm curious what yours is. I bet in this category, I guarantee you actually that you have me beat on this one.
So, we'll just go straight over to total. They have today, daily, monthly
Yeah.
averages, and then total. Total, I've listened for 1 month, 1 day, 3 hours, and 35 minutes. What do you have?
Holy
Is that a lot compared to what you have?
cow. You blow me out of the water.
Oh, wow, okay.
I have 21 days,
Okay,
1 hour and 34 minutes.
alright, you're, like, what, 2
Alright,
thirds of the
I
way
guess
there? Like,
I guess
yeah,
I'm
it's
not far behind.
I thought you were about to say, like, 4 days or something, and I was gonna be like, "Oh my god."
No, 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 but, okay, we're around the same. We're around the
And
same.
and I have a feeling that, like, there's a group of people who are, like, really into audiobooks,
Oh, for
and, like,
sure.
our numbers are nothing for the amount of time
Oh,
that, like
I, like, dabble in book talk, and,
okay.
uh, one in the Audible in people who listen to audiobooks, they they call them, their book trophies. So what they do is they will finish an audiobook, and then they will purchase the book to put it on the shelf, and that is their book trophy as, "I completed that book, here's the proof, there
That's
is the book."
interesting.
Yeah.
And that brings up an interesting point that I think a lot of people rip on is this is it considered reading? Because I feel like a lot of people will say, including myself, I'll be like, "Oh, I just read this book," and then start
Yeah,
to talk about it, even
yeah,
though I haven't looked at a page of this
yeah.
book.
I
I
think it's like it's I woulda loved to do some a little bit of research before coming into this conversation just about the science of reading versus listening and retention. So,
oh,
actually, I'll admit something about my history is that when I was really young, when I was really, really young, I had trouble with reading. When I was, like, in, like, 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade, was having trouble with reading, so I got a reading specialist, and
okay.
I used a reading specialist for, like, a year or 2 years, and I have to say when this is, like, why I push, like, early intervention for these kinds of things, because that made me a lifelong reader. Like, that was
That's
my
good. Yeah.
favorite point. But I remember that being, like, my favorite part of the day is this reading specialist taking me out of my classroom and reading a book, and, like, I would read out loud to her, or I would read to myself, and then I would have to write down what I remembered or ask questions about it, and apparently it, like, really did help because by the time I got to 5th grade, now it started to become a strength for me. My reading speed is not fast. However, now for me, like, I can if I read something slow, I can retain a lot of what the
Mhm.
book has. So but I just think that's cool. That's where, like, my recreational, uh, reading, I think, started was when I got that reading specialist. So wherever she is, she did a lot for me. It's a nice story.
Yeah, I feel like this is like it's a perfect outlet for something like that. I mean, as a kid, you should probably I don't know, I feel like it's probably a little bit more beneficial to probably actually read and, like, comprehend on your own.
Probably.
But, like, for people who might be a slow reader or,
Mhm.
something where, the classic, "Oh, I sit down at night, I start reading, and, oh, I fall asleep within 5 minutes," or something
Yeah.
like that. It's great to times where you wouldn't be able to read, like in the car or something. That's the best is if you have a
Oh,
work
it's
commute.
great.
Um
I think they both hold a important space. And,
mhm,
like, I don't I would never say that that I read the book. I probably would have given what is unnecessarily drawn out explanation. "Oh, I listened to the audiobook," or something.
yeah.
Like
I've started to do that a little
yeah.
bit more. Like I was listening to this book, but I definitely have said, like, "Oh, I read this book before," and it's like, and then you get that person who's like, "Well, did you read it or was it an audiobook?" And you're like, "Okay, you got me." You feel like a big man now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh,
But according
I
to a
love it.
random Reddit post and the Fairfax County Library, audiobooks are considered reading. So I think that's all
Okay.
the research we need to
Oh,
do on
that's
that.
it. That's it. That's all the research we need here.
Yeah,
100%.
I
No other research needed.
it's just so different to compare. Like you're getting all the same information, but you're just not reading it off a page. You're just listening to it. But I would love to know, like you said, like the comprehension end of it.
Yeah.
Like, does reading it make you remember it a lot more than just listening to it? I don't know. I
Ooh,
could go either way on that.
I got a good headline for you here. Whether you
Oh,
are a visual learner or not, most brains are able to create more vivid imagery through listening to speech rather than reading it. In fact, several studies show that listening to audiobooks produces more of a brain response than simply reading word for word off the page.
okay.
So there's one benefit to that.
And
There's
this
a
is
lot of other things that go into it, somatic processing, language processing, cognitive and emotional parts of the brain. So there's a lot of differences between the 2, but it seems like from what I can see here, there's benefits and downsides to both.
okay. And that's a good, like, I think you mentioned something that's a good, like, kinda transition into more audiobook chat is it helps it sounded like almost in a layman's terms, like, it listening is, like, helps your brain visualize better, possibly. And I kind of agree with that. I feel like when
Yeah,
I'm reading a book and, you're processing all the information, you're reading, and it's like, if there's an argument, I guess, or something, let's just say, in your head, you have to be reading or saying it in your head with the inflection of how it should
yes.
be spoken.
Yeah,
That
yep,
gets taken out. There's really great narrators on here that, like, they put that emphasis and, like, you're listening to like a play almost. So, I feel like I can definitely visualize more, or I think it's easier to for me to, like, remember a name or something if I'm just hearing it rather than reading it. So, there's some, yeah, it I feel like that's one of the biggest barriers to entry is a lot of people think that it's just gonna be somebody monotone reading it, like, they
mm,
handed a guy a book
mhm.
and they put a microphone next to him, like, "Just read the words." But really, it's a whole, like, theater kind some of them are theater, they have multiple narrators, so I know that was, I think talking to my dad, he was kinda like, "Oh, isn't it boring?" And I was like, "No, like, try one out and, like,
Yeah.
you'll understand, like, it's
You know,
not just someone
that's
reading."
really funny. What's your dad's age range again without giving it away?
Like 65, something like
Yeah,
that,
okay,
around
so
there.
my dad's right around a similar age. He also said the exact same thing. He's like, "What
Yeah.
you're listening to stories? Oh, like someone's reading it to you?" Like he was
I like
making fun of
picturing your
me.
dad saying that.
He was making fun of me for doing it, and I was just like, it's actually I'm not gonna lie, it's kinda cool." Like,
Yeah,
it's pretty neat.
because
Um,
every once in a while, my dad will go on, like, super long drives,
yeah,
and it's like, every time he does it, they're
perfect
for
time for
hours. I'm like,
audiobook.
"Why don't you listen to a book?" And I'm like, "How do you listen to talk radio and NFL radio the whole time? Like, listen to a book or something." Like, I know he probably listen to music too, but I'm like, to me, it gets boring. I like to change it up, listen to something
Yeah, I
And
mean, I love sports radio, but there's only so much that you can listen to that. After, like,
oh,
it starts becoming the same stories over and over again or whatever, and I'm just like,
mhm.
"Okay, let's move on from this topic."
It's NFL radio is funny to listen as a little side note, when
Oh,
it's the
yeah?
off season, the amount of vamping and just,
Oh,
like, drawing out the most small topic, oh, so I'm like, "Yeah, how do you, like, sit there and listen to that?" I'm like, "Throw on an audiobook," and he actually recently is, like, a convert now, like,
yeah,
he started listening, he did, like, the free trial, listened to a few books, and then, I was talking to him recently, they had a big sale, and he bought, like, 5 or 6 books.
nice.
I got him to buy that Project Hail Mary, and I'm very interested to
Oh,
see how he likes that
yeah, yeah, yeah,
because 'cause
yeah,
I'm
that'll be a
like,
good one.
yeah, I looked like I feel like that's a I'm it's gotta be, like, top 5 audiobooks out, right?
Oh, for
Ever?
sure, yeah, yeah, that
Like,
author is
just
very
based
popular,
on ratings and everything, it's
definitely.
last time I looked, I think it has, like, 100 and something thousand reviews at, like, a 4.8 out of 5,
Oh, wow.
and it's like, "Holy moly."
Yeah, so for this particular episode, I think we're just like, when we talk about what we've been listening to and
Mhm.
audiobooks that we like, we're gonna keep it generally to, like, fiction on this episode, mostly because we can always go back to this topic and talk about, say, bibliographies or other different genres, and lately, you and I have both been listening to some fictional stories.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Um
what have you been listening to lately, John?
So for me, actually, for the past, it's got to be at least like a couple months at this point. I finally started the Dungeon Crawler Carl books.
That's right. I remember
Now,
you telling me about this.
for a lot of people, they would not know about this book. This is like if you search, hey, I'm into sci fi or fantasy or something like that on Reddit or any forum like that, the like top answer is Dungeon Crawler Carl. And I forget how I found it. I'm not sure if I found it on Reddit or whatnot, but the gist of it is this it starts out with like a guy is outside at like 2 in the morning, like smoking a cigarette, or the cat gets out or something. And as he's out there, literally everything on earth just collapses. Like it's as if everything just gets flattened to the ground.
Hmm.
And what is happening is every year there's this galactic television show where they go to a planet and the people or species living on that planet get sent into a dungeon where they have to beat all the floors, and each floor gets harder and harder and has crazy themes and whatnot, and the whole thing is broadcast to the universe. All these different places. This is like the reality show. And so anybody who is inside a building died because it they just got slammed to the ground, and, everyone, like, they got an opportunity, "Hey, you could come down and do the show, or you live up on Earth and, like, we'll totally not mess with you, but it's, like, a barren wasteland." And, yeah, so it starts out, he goes down, and the whole kinda thing of it is you have Carl, but then you also have, you have Donut, the cat that had gotten outside. It got brought down and it's a character in the book.
Oh
That's
my
like his, like,
gosh.
sidekick is this cat who, an anthropomorphic cat now. But,
Wait, what? It turned
like, it's a cat. It's the same as a cat, but, like, it has a voice, a personality. It, like,
oh my
has its own
gosh.
story and everything. And so they start going through this whole thing, and it is super cool because I'm really digging it. Like, I'm on book what book? Book 6. He's currently writing book 7, and it's funny, it's got, like, weird humor in it, It's, somewhat based in reality, so they reference
Yeah.
things from the real world, like our world. Yeah, I would so recommend it, and it's got a big overarching story of, like, the companies and stuff who are running this thing, and it's not just Dungeons& and Dragons. It's not just that in a f like,
Yeah.
it's crazy. Like, I started it and, like, there's been some ups and downs, I would
Yeah, yeah,
say.
yeah.
Um, the one book was a little confusing, especially the way like I said, I tried to listen to it while I was working, and that one I had to, like, give up doing that. I was like, "There's just no way." And I've had a couple times where, like, I'm like, "Oh, crap," like, I missed something, but, like,
Mhm.
it's been fine. They're long books, they're, like, 20 odd hours. But,
I did
yeah.
fall asleep on a plane once when I was listening to an audiobook, and it totally messed me up. I was like, "Where was I? I have no idea
Mhm.
where I was in the book."
It's so hard to find your spot in an audiobook.
It
Like,
really
I
is. It's
so many
tough.
times I've been like, "Oh, I'm here," and then you listen and you're like, "Wait, no, that happened. Hold on."
Yep,
Like, I'm way off. But
yep.
I would say, Dungeon Crawler Carl, definitely worth the hype or worth the hype. It's, like I said, it's really funny, it's a nice action book. There's a lot of them, so I'd recommend it for sure if you're looking for something new, Burger.
I remember I remember I was thinking of it, like, by the reviews, and I really do this is maybe I think this is a negative, actually. I don't think it's a good thing. Um,
Okay?
I really live and die by the artwork on a book's cover. Like,
You're not supposed to judge those by that. You there's a whole saying about that, Burger.
I know that's literally the phrasing, right? Don't judge a book by its cover. And I literally cannot help myself. Like, I it's just s and the thing is, I actually believe that we have a lot of bad artwork on book covers
Mhm.
like, I don't know if it's just American authors or us in general, but I go through a bookstore and I'm like, "Don't like that color, don't like that cover, don't like that cover,"
Oh,
and that's why I'm saying it's a problem for me. Like, this is not a good thing. I don't know what
I
it is. It's
Burger,
not a
I'm
good
right there
thing.
with you. If
Yeah?
I'm on Audible, because I'm on Audible a lot,
Yeah.
and, like, I feel like there's so much weird artwork now because there's just so many books. Like,
Yes.
there's just so many on Audible and self-published and all these things, and I feel like a lot of these people, they write this book, it's a whole big thing, and then they're like, "Oh, I gotta have a cover. Let me go on Fiverr real quick, and I'll pay
Oh.
this guy to make an AI image of a
Yeah.
dragon or something."
But so that was my point is that Dungeon Crawler Carl, I don't love the artwork that was coming up.
I'm
It looks cheap. It looks like a 99-cent Amazon book that you would buy, and I think that's what turned me off from actually buying it.
Yeah, the cover artwork is weird. I guess it feels like hand drawn or
Mm.
something, but it's got this weird look to it. I fully understand what you're saying. It's not the best,
Well,
and
'cause I think maybe I also think, like, specifically with the Dungeon Crawler Carl books, is that I don't want that to be the image that I'm creating of what's happening in the book myself. Like, you know what I
yeah,
mean? Because there's supposed to be a representation of what you are visualizing or imagining is on the cover, especially with these book covers. And to me, I'm like, oh, that art doesn't look good. I don't want to be picturing that stuff. Right. So
yeah.
obviously, I'm probably not. I'll probably create something else in my head, but I think maybe that's the connection. I don't know.
Yeah, there's been a couple times where I've been listening to this and I'll realize I'm like, "Oh, yeah, that the character is on the cover." Like, the
Yeah.
character that's, like, one of the main points. And I'm like, not really what I had in my mind, but, like, okay, like, I'm moving along."
Yeah.
But, uh, I will say, if you do listen to this book, which I fully think you should,
I'm probably going to now, yeah.
It took me a little bit to get actually into both of the main characters' voices. Um,
Got it.
the cat has almost this is I don't know why this is she doesn't sound like this, but, like, picture, like, Family Guy season 1 Stewie Griffin. Like, the angry British kind of
Got it.
voice, and it's kinda high pitched, and it's like, "Okay," but then once you start to like the character, you're
Mhm.
then like, "Oh, okay, like, it's fine."
Yep.
And Carl, I swear that whoever's recording the voice, Jeff Hayes, I think is his name, does not open his mouth when doing the thing. It's always just, "Donut, get
Oh,
over here."
oh,
It's like
wow.
Duke Newton. It's like Duke Nukem.
Wow.
Duke Nukem. Jeez Louise. But yeah,
Dungeon
sometimes
crawler call. Dungeon cracker.
yeah,
I can't say that 10 times
I
fast.
don't this is making us flub all over the place.
Yeah.
But, all that aside, like, I think it's a really fun book. I think it's up our alley. Like, I would not when I was talking to my dad about audiobooks, this one did not come up. I wasn't like, "You should download Dungeon Crawler Carl. Like, I think you'll like it."
Uh,
But,
okay.
yeah, so I would say give it a
Good
shot after, you
recommendation.
finish your next book. And
Yeah.
speaking of that, what are you listening to
So I'm listening
currently?
to, Stephen King's, Fairy Tale, and, I always had maybe because of being the slower reader on the slower side of speed, I always had a tough time with, Stephen King books because
Mhm.
Stephen King likes to describe things thoroughly and sometimes some of the most mundane things, and I remember, like, throughout time, multiple times trying to get into a Stephen King book. I love his short stories, by the way. So good.
Oh, okay.
Um, yeah, there's a book of his, short story collections. Highly recommend it.
That's his
Um,
newest book, actually, is a short story collection.
oh, that's awesome. I would
It just
totally, absolutely read that.
Yeah, it just released in May. It's called You Like It Darker, and
Oh,
I
that's
haven't
short
started it yet.
stories. Oh,
But yeah, it's like
wow.
12 short stories, I think.
Oh, there's one short story about a therapist that
Okay.
I've never ever had read something that I had shivers going down
Oh,
my
wow.
spine. Like, when the in during the reveal, I was like, that blew my mind. Like, I was,
Oh,
like,
gee.
really excited about it.
Oh, that's it. I listen to a lot of Stephen King.
Yeah.
He's probably he's what I've listened to the most on Audible. Uh, but yeah, like, what are you thinking of Fairy Tale so far? Very
Okay,
curious.
so I actually, like, half this book is set up for the second half, and I didn't mind the setup at all. Like,
Mhm.
the setup of this book is a young boy, who goes old he gets older over time, as everyone does,
Mhm.
and goes into becoming a high schooler, but he starts a relationship, a friendship with, an older gentleman who is really like the town grouch, you could say,
Yeah.
and the town grouch basically falls off his roof, and he starts caring for this old man's dog while he's in the hospital, starts gaining his trust, and then lots of magical things ensue
Yeah.
shortly after. I shouldn't say shortly after because the first half of the book is all of that. Um, but even that part of the book drew me in. And this is the first time I listened to a Stephen King audiobook.
Oh,
And
I'm jealous, Burger.
Uh, I I love it. So I for me, I think I'm realizing I'll read a Stephen King short story, no problem. But maybe because of the level of description and the intricacies of Stephen King's writings, that it might actually be beneficial for me to listen to the Stephen King audiobooks. So, the audio is read by Seth Numrich, and he does an excellent job, excellent job at reading. I don't know, man. I What is there to say else about it? I mean, it's not a horror book by Stephen King.
No, it's definitely not a horror
Yeah,
book. I actually would agree with you. I almost like the first half of the book more.
that's what I'm saying,
Like,
yo.
I it actually kinda lost me a bit in the second half.
Yes, I feel the same way. Now,
Okay,
I
good.
am still like, I think out of, uh, I think it's 24 hours long, something like that, and I think I have like 4 hours left, and that's
Okay.
exactly how I feel.
Yeah,
That's
it's still a
exactly how
good
I feel.
book. Like, it wasn't like, it's not like, oh, the second half was a real drag.
Yeah.
It's just I actually really I like the mundane that Stephen King does. Like,
Yeah,
just describing this relationship of, like you said, the town grouch and this high
right.
school kid, and but what's with Stephen King, though, it's like you're like, "Something's coming." Like, and
Yeah,
you're like,
you
"I
can
gotta."
feel it.
You're
You
like, so
can
you're like,
feel it.
I'm on my when start things start to unfold, you're
Yeah,
like, "Okay, like, alright, like,
yeah.
this is getting good."
So
But
this has emboldened me now because I had a credit to use on
mhm,
Audible, and I was like, "Well, I do sometimes like to get, like, if I'm gonna purchase an audiobook, I can purchase an $8 audiobook, right, without a credit, right? If I'm gonna use a credit from a subscription,
yeah.
I'm gonna get the book that's longer."
Yeah, full price. I'm
Yeah,
getting the full price long book.
exactly. So I decided, I was like, "If I like this much, I'm gonna purchase it."
That's one I haven't listened to
Okay,
of
so
Stephen King.
I now have it. It is, I think it's 40 hours long.
I think
It's
the
a long.
longest ever audiobook I listened to was Stephen King's The Stand.
Really?
The Stand is 47 hours and 47 minutes. Good
Whoa.
book, though. That's a good book.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow,
that one's
wow, wow.
long. I would if they're ever on sale, Burger,
Yeah.
have you ever, like, watched or listened or read the Dark Tower series?
I tried reading the Dark Tower series, and again, okay, my problem. I know that this is not gonna be like, it's not a popular opinion. I'm going against popular opinion here. But
Okay.
this is one of the books that actually turned me off from reading Stephen King. For
Really?
like, yeah, for like, I'm on the 6th chapter and I'm still reading about this guy and this other guy, and like them slowly traveling. Like, one guy's following the other guy, and I couldn't be more disinterested because we've been doing this for 6 chapters now. And I'm like, "Can we move
Yeah.
the story along, please?"
It
Like, and
starts slow.
I can't do the reading of that type of mundane writing for that long, especially because usually I end up falling asleep reading anyway. But I can't do it. I guarantee you, John, if I listened to those books, I bet I would make it all the way through.
Okay. It is rough in the beginning. Like, it is slow, but that was the first series I ever listened to,
Mm.
and I loved it, and it has a gut-wrenching part that's not part of the book. I think let's just say I think it's 7 books. 4 books in, I go to start the 5th book, and it's a new narrator, and I was like, "No." I'm like, "No." Like, I have to get used to new I've gotten I like
Whoa,
the characters, and at first I was like, "No, there's gotta be a different version."
that
Um,
threw you, huh?
Sadly, the original narrator, um, what was his name? If I can find it really quick. Um, George Guidell, he
Yeah.
got into, like, a serious motorcycle
Oh,
accident, that left him, like, unable to, like, speak, I believe.
Okay.
So it wasn't just, like, a creative thing, so I was like, "Ah, like, that's terrible," but, like, after a while oh, no, Frank Mueller. Frank Mueller is the
Okay.
original, Guidell is the guy who replaced him, and, yeah, it was at book 5, and I have to say he does a great job. It was just so jarring after 4 books, but I cannot wait for you to I hope you listen to more Stephen King because
Yeah, I think it will be next, and, I'm excited to do that because I also realized through I'm not you and I have had conversations, I'm not a big fan of horror genre movies,
Mhm.
but I am a fan of horror in the literary form.
Oh, okay.
I can read it or I can listen to it and be okay. I can't do
'Cause you
the
can listen with all the lights
visuals.
on
It's
and
not even
hang
that because I don't always listen with all the lights on. Sometimes I do listen to audiobooks before I'm going to bed instead of reading. Like, especially if I have a headache or something, like, I'd much rather listen to an audiobook. So, um, I
I think
don't know
it's
what it
prob
is.
I was gonna say it's probably like we were talking about it before, like, you're crafting the visual in your head. It's coming
True.
from your mind.
Although I am getting nervous now as we're talking about this because now I'm thinking of, like, of the It clown, and I'm like, "Oh, man, I wonder how creepy that freaking voice is gonna be over an
Mhm.
audiobook."
Man, I might I'm gonna download it as well, I think,
Okay.
because, I've seen the movie and everything,
Yeah.
so it made me not wanna download the audiobook. I
Yeah,
wanna listen to
yeah.
different ones, but I'm like, I've heard that the book is different somewhat, and
There's
so I'm
some
like, I
weird
really
stuff that goes on in the
yeah,
book,
there's some
apparently.
weird
Really
things.
weird stuff.
That
Prime
was that
Stephen King.
I was gonna say, was that Prime? You mean cocaine Stephen
That's
King?
what I mean.
Oh, but
Is
I
there
have to
any other
say
way?
Stephen King books are up there as some of my favorite
Yeah,
of Audible. Like, so this is the first Stephen King book you listened to. What else have you listened?
yeah.
What are some of your favorites s
I'm
that you
looking at mine right now, but I want to make sure that I have, like, my whole library here, and I'm, like, failing at that. All titles, there we go. There we go. Okay. So I listen to a lot of like, when it's audiobooks, I do really like, bibliographies because they tend to be, uh, read by the author.
Mhm,
So I can't we'll have another episode where we talk about that, but most of my Audible is are those.
okay.
So, actually, there's a lot of these that are that exactly that. Um,
So you listen to more nonfiction, like biographies, autobiographies, things like
biographies.
that.
I've been saying bibliographies. I
I
meant
didn't wanna
bio
correct you,
No,
but
you
it's
should have
okay.
corrected me. You absolutely should have. Um,
Bibliography is just such a fun word.
yes, it is. Project Hail Mary was really good, obviously, by
Yeah.
Andy Weir. That was so good. Loved that. I tried, a book series that I really like high fiction, and, Joe Abercrombie has these book series, a very
Mhm,
popular author, and I tried his, and let me just say, the 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 person who is reading these makes a huge difference because Joe Abercrombie goes hard into the how do I even describe it? Really strong, heavy, uh, peasant UK accent.
mhm.
So it's like, "Yeah, I took his thumb, eh?" Like, that kinda thing.
Cockney kind of a
Like, yeah,
thing?
Cockney, and I tried to listen to it, and I was like, "This is what we're gonna listen to? Like, this is what we're doing
Yeah.
for 30 hours? Nope, not happening."
I've had, like, 2 or 3 books like that where I downloaded what it was a Neil Gaiman book, I think,
Oh, yeah.
and I downloaded it because it was highly rated, and same thing, just, like, a pretty strong British accent,
Yep.
not hamming it up, but just that was their accent, and I was like, "Oh, I definitely like, I can't I'm not picking it up as easy." And
No.
so I've had a couple where I've bailed out,
And you know
but
what? That actually has made me realize, like, how important for audiobooks specifically, if you're using Audible, it is immensely important that you listen to a sample.
yeah,
Like,
I've
it is
learned that.
so, so important. It's not the same as buying a book. You need to go and listen to a sample just in case.
Yeah.
Um, I tried something that I think you'll be interested in. I tried solo leveling before we did our solo
Oh,
leveling anime
interesting.
episode. I tried because now they're coming out with more, um, light novels,
Okay,
as audiobooks, and I also tried The Rise of the Shield Hero. Here's my take
interesting.
here's my take on these. I did not like them. I
Okay.
did not think that even with how it's a struggle just with the translation in general when it goes from another language to English, it can sometimes sound odd. It's
Yeah.
worse as an
Uh,
audiobook.
I
Is
didn't think
wor
those would even be as audiobooks in
So,
general.
they just started to do more of these. Like, at the time, I was getting really into possibly collecting manga and light novels until I realized how expensive that hobby is, and
Mm,
I looked into this, and a lot of Reddit posts were discussing how a lot of these were being translated into audiobooks just
mhm.
recently for with English authors. And yeah, the general consensus is no. Uh,
Weird, 'cause I'm looking at it and it has good reviews, and that's what's tricky
oh,
is
interesting.
but see, to me, this is a red flag. Like, I'm looking at the reviews, it's like story 4.7 out of 5,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
performance 4.3. I'm like, there's something wrong. Like, I know it's a
Yeah, 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 yeah,
4.3,
yeah.
but the ratio is different.
Yep.
Um, but narrators make it. And you mentioned Project Hail Mary. That's Ray Porter who does that book. So he's like top tier narrator. Like,
Okay.
love him. Like he's great. Um, Another, narrator I just wanted to mention with I'm gonna not mention Stephen King after this, I'm gonna get into some other books. Pet Cemetery is Michael C. Hall, like, from Dexter,
Oh,
so he does
no
that one,
way.
and, there's been a couple books. Did you watch, House of Cards?
Yes.
Do you
Not all
remember
the way through though.
the script writer or the speech writer that
Yeah.
comes in?
Yeah.
He does a couple Stephen King books too, and
Oh.
his voice is good. He
Oh, that's
gets good,
cool.
like, I mean, Stephen King is one of the most well-known authors of our time, so he gets pretty much top pick for narrators.
Oh, definitely.
Um, you
I
mentioned
I'm going through my my audiobooks. I'm realizing something. I think uh I think I save fiction for reading, like actual physical reading.
oh, okay.
And I think that when I see a good biography or something that might be like research based or pop psychology, which is a few things that I enjoy, or like a documentary type book where it's reporting on something, uh, those tend to be the majority of my library because I'm looking through this right now. I'm like,
Interesting.
wow, I can't find a lot of fiction, but I read a lot of fiction. So,
Our libraries are completely different. It
oh,
sounds
that's
like,
funny.
um, we've mentioned it before, or at least I have, the Jeanette McCurdy
Yeah.
biography. That is fantastic because she reads it. That one's really that's, like, the only
You for when we
biography
do
I really have.
biographies.
I have that one. I haven't listened to it, but I have the Seth Rogen. He has one, and Paul Scheer. I'm, like, halfway through the Paul Scheer one.
Oh, the Paul Scheer one's fantastic.
Yeah.
Listen, we have to do a whole separate episode about these because 'cause they're so
Ugh.
good.
Let's see
Uh,
here.
I did,
Oh,
go ahead.
to come back to narrators, and one of the big first audiobooks I listened to, Ready Player One. Fri Are you a fan of Will is it, what's his name? Will Wheaton?
I I I do think I like Will Wheaton. I always wonder. I'm like always kind of torn on Will Wheaton. I'm like, do I like Will Wheaton? I don't know what it is about Will
Ah,
Wheaton. Sometimes I think it's because he plays a lot of villains. I don't know.
there's I don't know why, like, he was fine.
Yeah.
I don't think he has a voice that I wanna listen to a
Oh,
ton,
okay.
and, like, I it's such a small irk, and I've probably already said this to you. In Ready Player One, there's a point where somebody calls somebody a poser, and he's like, "Oh, like, you're such a poser," whatever. He pronounces it "posier" in the book multiple times. He's like, "Oh, well, you're just a posier," and I'm
I
like,
don't
"Wait."
know how to feel about that.
I dropped him after that. I don't listen to Will Wheaton anymore. I gave it a try. That was it.
I think you and I actually shared. This is early, like this got to be like 10 years ago that I think we took this journey together. And I'm pretty sure your cousin slash my best friend also did this. I think we all dove into the serial book series Yesterday's Gone. Am I
Yeah.
remembering that correctly?
Mhm.
I listened to that as audiobooks
Oh, that was probably good.
and it was so good.
Oh, that sounds
Yesterday's
good.
Gone is such a good serialized book or audiobook series, and the narrator did a wonderful job with all of the different characters because there's a lot of different voices. But that is a super interesting and super different book that I think people should check out. It's creepy, it's weird, it's
And that's by
post-apocalyptic.
I forget his first name, but Sanderson, right?
The
Brandon
author?
Sanderson? Yeah. Like, it's
No,
a
not that one.
oh.
You might be thinking about something else.
Oh,
So
okay.
Brandon Sanderson, you and I also listen to Brandon Sanderson. Maybe this wasn't with you. This is
It
written
might have
by
not been.
this is written by 2 authors. Um, I seriously can't recommend this enough. Of course, I can't, like Sean Platt and David Wright. And I'm pretty sure that how if I'm gonna check on this right now, but this is one of those situations where it was originally written, like, as a blog. Like, it wasn't published initially.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that is the case. I'm trying to double check this, but from my understanding, this was, like, something that they started together. They started, um yeah, because it's by seasons, so that's why I said serialized. So it has,
Okay.
like, episodes and seasons, so I'm pretty sure this was, like, basically like a blog post that was published online for, like, anyone to see, and it did
Interesting.
so well that they were like that a publisher picked it up and said, "We have to publish this."
It
Like,
sounds
it's
familiar.
that good. Yeah, it's, there's creatures involved. It's very like a quiet place kinda thing. Not the same necessarily rule set, but there's like a lot of really magical stuff. Honestly, so good that I would go back to it because I've pretty much forgotten most of the story, and it is an incredible read. It's an incredible listen. Yesterday's Gone, highly recommend it.
Interesting. I looked it up and I've seen the cover before, I
Okay.
feel like, but I've never listened to it.
I think did they try to make it a movie? I don't know if they did or not, or a TV series.
There's definitely
Maybe not.
something that's, like, called that. Yesterday's Gone. Hmm.
No, there's
Um,
Yesterday Is Gone, that's not it. Um,
it sounds interesting. I would check it out. I'm trying to find other books that I've listened to that's not just Stephen King. Oh, the book Roadkill is really good. It's a kinda sci-fi book. It's a Audible exclusive, and that one's really interesting. That one's super fun. I think they might be working on a sequel for it. I think it's the Threshold Universe series. That one is it starts with like a book just called 14. And it's kind of like a supernatural kind of little bit of science fiction in there. Those were really good too. I kind of went through those. I think I'm still on the last book, but I listened to those like right in a row as well because
Okay.
those were a lot of fun. Like, I listen to it's a lot of sci-fi I end up listening to. I feel like because I feel like I just want like a fun adventure to listen to,
Okay,
like something
nice.
that
Yeah.
has like a lot of I don't know action adventure. I guess.
Yeah. Did,
Uh,
did I get you to read The Hike?
that was one of my first ever audiobooks.
Okay, that is such a good audiobook. If you haven't if you're listening to this episode and you haven't read The Hike, it's one of my favorite books, but it's also amazing audiobook for sure.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
It's a good one. It's a good one.
Man, I'm going way far back now. Let's see here.
The
Oh, one of the other ones I got into really early on is the Magic 2.0 series, which is awesome. I think I never listened to the last book because they released like a 3.5, like a 4.5 book, and it just wasn't really good.
Mhm.
And then like I just kind of fell off. But it's like the story of like this guy gets transported somehow to like the Renaissance era with like a smartphone,
Uh-huh.
and he tries to act like he's gonna be like, "Oh, look at this technology I
Yeah.
have." And like he meets these wizards who are just like, "No, you're an idiot. Yeah, we all have technology. That's why we're wizards." Like, and it's
Wait,
like
what is this called?
Magic 2.0 is the series. The first book
I
is called
I
Off to Be a Wizard.
I definitely also read or listened to this by your recommendation.
Yeah,
There's no
that
way
those are fun.
I yeah, that I remember that. Yes, I remember that.
Yeah, I'd like to go back 'cause it looks like they have a 6th book that I never listened to,
Also,
but
like, it's funny that the Dungeon Crawler Carl series, um, that it falls under a interesting American, genre called lit RPGs,
mm,
which can get very bogged down in RPG-like rules. I w does Crawler Carl do that or no?
not so much.
Okay. That's a very interesting, like, because 'cause I've
Like
read other audiobooks or read and listened to other audiobooks
like,
of
it
that
deals
genre.
heavily with, like, items and things like
Okay.
that and stuff, so there's talk of stats and whatnot
Okay.
and things, but it's not super heavy,
Got it.
like but I would 100% recommend that book to take away from this recording is go listen to that. I mean, there's so many, we could sit here for a long time, but
We already
it
have.
I was gonna say we should wrap it up, but, like, my takeaway is listen to Dungeon Crawler Carl if you like sci-fi or anything like that, like, can't go wrong, and literally if any Stephen King, if you like Stephen King, any of the like, his audiobooks are great.
So I just looked up, best lit RPG, books, and
Mhm.
my recommendation that came up off of Google is Goblin Girl Maid Service 2.
No, those are tailored search results, Burger.
I swear it's not.
Well, yeah, okay.
I swear it's not.
Oh my goodness.
Well, anyway, this was another episode of Screened In Podcast. Where this time we talked a little bit less about something that's really on our screens, although you do plus the play button on a screen, so and you look at the cover on a screen, so I think it counts.
I think so.
Um, yeah, a medium that we haven't explored so much. Um, but I hope it interests you as much as it interests us. I'm sure we'll go back to the topic and talk about other books in different genres that we've enjoyed. Any final takeaways that you want to add, John, before we move past this?
No, I think that, whether you think it's considered reading or not, they're super entertaining, and something different compared to music or a podcast you can try.
Yeah. And don't forget too that it is actually possible to get audiobooks. What is that app called? From your local library?
Oh, yeah, you can get, like with a library card, you have access to,
Yeah.
like, free audiobooks.
I'm pretty sure I have it on my phone, but I'm not gonna go through it right now. It's easy Google search. There is an app that allows you to connect with your local library to listen to audiobooks. So make sure to also, if you don't want to spend a whole lot of money on like an Audible subscription or like a $40 payment, because some of these get really expensive, you can also look into that as well as another option. But this has been another episode of the Screened In podcast. Thank you for listening. If you've been listening to us with the start when we were going weekly, thank you so much. And we hope you follow us as we go bi weekly, and enjoy the rest of your summer. We will see you next time. Goodbye, everybody.
Adios.